Hey guys, welcome back to Grim Productions, and today I'm going to be doing a little break from the theory videos since the mystery box and the Tooth the Clown have all been revealed. I don't think there's really going to be much going on for Spirit Halloween until like halfway to Halloween. So I'm going to be doing a versus video, which I haven't done in a while, on statics versus animatronics, basically my thoughts and opinions on both of them, and how I think they can possibly overcome each other, and why statics might actually be better than actual animatronics. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So for starters, I'm going to be using the Plague Doctor as my example for what I think would make a really good static, or what makes a good static. The Plague Doctor is just almost a perfect prop in my opinion, I think, as far as statics go, and this is honestly one of my favorite props of all time. I really would like to have this guy in my collection, but he's just incredibly rare to find, I think, at least on like my current eBay. But anyways, the Plague Doctor, just there's so many good elements of him that make a really good static prop. For starters, and this is my number one thing whenever it comes to any proper animatronic ever, is the detail. For being such a simplistic designed character, the Plague Doctor has an incredible amount of detail where it can. His mask, it looks like the actual material that like a Plague Doctor would actually have worn back then. Just like everything, like the molding about it and the paint job, all looks super duper incredible. And his staff, while the skulls might not be like the best painted or something, I do think that they still have a good amount of detail, and the wooden staff itself looks pretty good. But the mask is definitely one of the best things about this character, and the hands are also very cool looking. But just everything else about him is also amazing. His height, his like just structure as a static character, it's very intimidating and creepy. And his audio is also something that I would like to pinpoint on, because it is really good, and it can really set the mood for any area. It's just this very creepy breathing, and there's not a whole lot to it, but it is just a very eerie look on this animatronic, and I feel, or sorry, on this static prop. And I feel like what makes something like this better than a modern animatronic, at least nowadays, is that it feels a lot more realistic than a animatronic would. And I think it's just because it doesn't move. Animatronics are obviously kind of known to move. That's their whole thing, is that they're just moving mechanical things. And I feel like with them moving, it can take away from the life, like the more realistic side of the character, versus a static prop, which this prop in particular just bases its entire appearance off of the intimidating look that it has. And I feel like it really sells this realistic, creepy, and eerie design, which is why I think the Plague Doctor is definitely, probably the best static, I think, of all time. Maybe not. Someone, if you want to put down in the comments below your opinion on him, please feel free to do so. But I do think that if Spirit Halloween were to make more statics like this, then statics wouldn't probably get as bad of a rap as some of them do sometimes. I just feel the reason that most statics, are kind of hated on is just because of the lack of detailing and paint job, and just some of the audio that these things, tend to lack. And for example, Twisted Tina, who came out the exact same year, was kind of just a waste of space in my opinion as far as an animatronic goes, because she was actually in stores, and she, in my opinion, is probably one of the worst statics we've gotten. Doesn't have much going on for her at all, to be honest. Very lack of detail, no audio. There's just nothing really that holds that static up compared to this one. And as far as animatronics go, I'm going to be putting Raven in this spot, because there's a lot of things that I do like about Raven, and also because him and the Plague Doctor are kind of somewhat related with that bird, I guess, look to them, even though they are kind of completely two different characters. Whatever. Anyways, Raven, I feel like, is a fantastic animatronic because of his animation. His animation is not very robotic, like let's say maybe Mr. Hal, for example, has a very robotic and stiff animation, while Raven, I noticed, has a very smooth and constant flowing movement to him, which makes it a lot more realistic than a prop like Mr. Hal, who, constantly kind of is breaking, and it doesn't really look as good. And I feel like this constant smooth movement really makes it look realistic, as far as animatronics go. The only thing that I have to say about Raven is that his detail, I don't think, is anywhere near the Plague Doctor's detail. Even though he is still a very detailed animatronic, I just think the Plague Doctor overall wins in that category. And me personally, I would take a animatronic or prop that has more detail than one that has more movement any day. I'm more about the quality and the realisticness of the way a prop looks versus the way they move. Because, props, animatronics are going to eventually break one day. But what doesn't break is, the way that they look, the way that their detail is. That never really stops looking the way, it does. So I'd rather spend the money on something that looks great and it's going to last a little bit longer just because it doesn't have all of these cheap mechanics in it versus something that might move quickly at the second but not, in like the next 3 years or something like that. With all that being said, though, Raven I think is still a good example of an animatronic, at least a non-jump scare animatronic. Just because of his movement, it's very flowy. I think they did it super well. The only downside to his movement is whenever his mouth opens and shuts, it has this very clicky kind of noise, because the mouth kind of hits the top jaw or the top beak, whatever, and it kind of throws off the audio. I feel like in a way it just kind of drowns it out. And another thing with animatronics and the audio is that in an animatronic you can actually hear the motors. Obviously you can hear them kind of just moving depending on how loud you have their volume up, but of course you don't want it all the way up sometimes. But because you can hear that, it's very annoying and distracting, and it definitely takes away from the realistic side of these characters versus a static like the Plague Doctor, whose audio is very clear sounding, and it's just very, I don't know what the exact word is, not echoey, but just it sounds like he actually is right there and it's an actual breathing sound versus what Raven kind of has more of like a muffled, you can obviously tell it's like a cheap kind of like audio sound. My next topic with statics and animatronics is licensed characters. Now this one I'm going to kind of go by quickly because I'm pretty sure this one, a lot of people probably have the same opinion with this one. But if you have a licensed character, I definitely think companies should start focusing more on the accuracy of the character versus what they actually do as far as animation goes. This prop right here, as you can probably tell, is a Demogorgon back from 2019 from Spirit Halloween. Very expensive static prop, way too overpriced, but it looks fantastic. It doesn't do anything. It just kind of stands there at 7 feet tall and looks very, very intimidating, and it looks like it came right out of the show. It's incredible how good this prop is as far as details go, versus a prop that just came out like Beetlejuice about a year ago, who isn't, I guess, the most accurate character, but yet has animation. And I feel like especially because a lot of people don't like his animation that much, I really don't care. I think it's whatever. But I feel like they should have spent more time and money on his accuracy and detailing versus the animation, especially because all the Beetlejuices that we've had in the past don't look good at all. This one's definitely the closest one, and I think it looks good, but I would have much rather preferred them to actually pay more attention to the face details versus the animation on him, which you can honestly barely notice the mouth movement, which it's just kind of sad in my opinion. And especially because I don't think that they actually, paid to have Michael Keaton's face like molded for this prop. They should have definitely, paid more attention to the actual head sculpt instead of having him move around and talk and stuff like that. And I feel like if somebody wants to have a moving like a license or like a moving movie character, like someone dressed as Pennywise or something in your haunt, get a costume for that person. Don't like buy an animatronic that barely looks like Pennywise. Instead, just get like a really good costume with a really good mask from Trick or Treat Studios or something, and use that as a scare actor or something. That I feel like that would have a much better effect on a moving character from a TV show or a movie. I feel like Party City had a lot of potential with the Creep this year to make him look fantastic. I think he looks okay in some models, but other people just got really unlucky with his design or how like their face sculpt turned out on him. And he is, I'm gonna consider him a static. He only has one movement, but I just feel like there could have been a little bit more detailing on him versus a prop like Reagan from Spirit Halloween, who also has one movement, barely moves, but I feel like the detail's a lot better on her. And as far as jump scare props go versus static characters, honestly, I don't really like jump scare props that much, especially anymore. Maybe whenever I was a little bit of a younger hunter or whatever, I thought jump scare props were the coolest thing, but I would so much rather prefer a detailed prop that makes the area look cooler than a jump scare prop that isn't even going to scare that many people. and has barely any detail on them. So for this example, I'm going to be using Mr. Dark because Mr. Dark has barely any detail in my opinion. I'm going to get a lot of comments disagreeing with me on this one, but I feel like he's a very just lackluster animatronic as far as look goes. Sure, his jump scare might work on some people, but jump scare props in a haunt I feel like are they're not very effective. In a haunt, you're gonna want to use actors to scare people. I feel like that would definitely scare a lot more people than a jump scare animatronic who they're barely even gonna notice in a haunt. I feel like, depending on how dark it is in there, unless you have the animatronic right in that person's face, which I doubt a lot of people would because they don't want him to be touching people. It's not gonna scare someone. Someone like a prop like Henry Hustle isn't gonna, make a child scream. I feel like it's definitely gonna be an actor that'll make them scream a lot more. But that's just my little hot take on like jump scare props versus statics. I would much rather prefer a static that has a lot of detail versus a jump scare prop that's gonna break in the next 2 years. But yeah, anyways, guys, that'll do it for this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I know this was definitely a bit of a longer video. It was originally actually like close to 20 minutes, but I had to definitely cut it down. Please tell me your opinions down in the comments below, and what do you think is better, statics or animatronics, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.